Hungary has blocked $55 billion in EU aid for Ukraine, hours after an agreement was reached on starting membership talks. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban posted on social media after talks in Brussels, quote, "Summary of the night shift, veto for the extra money to Ukraine." At the same summit, leaders agreed to open membership talks with Ukraine and Moldova and to grant candidate status to the country of Georgia. All three nations have been pushing to join the alliance. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky called the decision, quote, "a victory for Ukraine." The president of the European Council, Charles Michel, said aid talks would now resume early next year. He said important progress had been achieved at the summit.
Tonight, we sent a very powerful signal to the European citizens, a very powerful signal to the Ukrainian citizens, because we have decided to grant the candidate status to Georgia, to open the negotiations with Ukraine and with Moldova, to make a very important step with Bosnia-Herzegovina, because we will open negotiations and a report will be issued by the Commission in the weeks to come in view to make a decision. This is a historic moment, a historic European Council.
All right, the BBC's Jessica Parker has more now from Kyiv.
The decision to open membership talks here in Ukraine will be hugely welcome, of course. They applied to join the EU right after Russia's full-scale invasion, although for many, moving towards Europe is a far longer-held ideal, rooted in values they feel they are fighting for right now. For President Zelensky, this is a decision that he really wanted and he really needed. He has been trying to re-energise Western support. Don't forget, he left the US earlier this week, having failed to secure some crucial defence funds. And the decision in Brussels was hanging in the balance because EU leaders pushed it through in a pretty bizarre fashion. The only one to oppose the plans, Hungary's Viktor Orban, left the room when the decision was being made. Now, I think here that will be regarded as a bit of a detail for now. It's an obstacle overcome. And while Ukrainians know that the road to EU membership is a long one with no guarantee of success, this is a morale boost right when they needed one.
Ukraine is critically dependent on EU and US funding as it continues to fight occupying Russian forces. And it is a crucial time as winter weather picks up and heavy fighting continues in Bakhmut and Avdiivka. Our correspondent, Abdul Jalil Abdulrasulov, reports from the front lines in Bakhmut in the east of Ukraine, where troops are under pressure because of a dwindling supply of military hardware.
In the bitter cold of winter, this deadly war grinds on. And big guns, provided by Western partners, still play a crucial role. Ukraine's 93rd Brigade is stationed near Bakhmut. They say the Russians attack at least twice a day. Their job? To stop them advancing. As the conflict turns to stalemate, Ukrainian soldiers say they need the support of their international partners more than ever. It is demoralizing for them to hear that instead, America's funding for Ukraine has ground to a halt.
If there's no support from the Western countries, then it's going to get really bad. Russia will seize Ukraine, then it will be the turn of the Baltic states and Poland. I don't think the Russians will stop here.
Our conversation is interrupted by orders to destroy a new target. The crew has to be quick. After a long silence, they're told to stand down and hide the howitzer. But these soldiers worry their guns will remain silent for much longer without new US funding and supplies. These are 155mm caliber artillery shells, and most Western weapons and artillery systems that Ukraine has received use these types of shells. And therefore the shortage of these rounds will mean that those big guns will have to fire less, and that in its turn will have a huge impact here on the front line. There's already a serious lack of ammunition for Western weapons, and the shortage is worse for old Soviet guns. The commander of this aging Soviet howitzer unit admits that they have to use shells carefully. After loading, the crew waits for hours for the command to open fire on a high-value target. They simply cannot afford to waste ammunition on anything else. The difficult days ahead are uncertain, but these soldiers say their determination is not. Abdul Abdurasulov, BBC News, Donetsk region in eastern Ukraine.